Hello learning buddy, how are you? I hope everyone is doing perfectly fine. My name is Teacher Given HINAMPAS from Montevista National High School main campus, your RBI teacher for grade 7 English. Hey there learning buddy! In the previous chapter, you were able to learn a lot of information that could enhance your language skills and communicative competence. Also, as a young adult, you are able to successfully thrive in this ever-changing society by learning how to understand, accept, and value diverse backgrounds. In this module, you will be learning another important skill. It will encourage you to use appropriate multimedia resources when orally giving information, instructions, making explanations, and narrating events in personal or factual recounts. In this activity sheet, you will be accomplishing series of exercises to help you strengthen your knowledge in using multimedia resources in narrating and sequencing events. After going through this, you are expected to 1. Narrate events in personal or factual recounts, and 2. Arrange the events in the text read using multimedia resources. Are you excited to get moving? To begin with your learning journey, let us do the following activities. These activities will check how much you know about multimedia resources and sequencing events. Activity 1. Write the letter of the correct answer on a separate sheet of paper. Are you ready? Let's get moving. Number 1. It refers to the resources that combine multiple media format like text, still images, audio, animation, and video interactively. Letter A. Multimedia resources. Letter B. Internet resources. Letter C. Primary resources. And letter D. Secondary resources. Number 2. Which of the following is a benefit of using multimedia resources? Letter A. It provides a deeper understanding. Letter B. It gives access to a wide array of information. Letter C. It increases positive emotion. And letter D. All of the above. Number 3. Which of the following is not true about multimedia resources? Letter A. Multimedia resources do not allow world exploration. Letter B. Multimedia resources have a direct effect on learning. Letter C. Multimedia resources can impact the student's mood during the learning process. And letter D. Multimedia resources stimulate the brain. Number 4. Which component of multimedia resources is considered as the oldest form of media? Letter A. Text materials. Letter B. Photographs and other still images. Letter C. Audio files. And letter D. Video presentation. Number 5. Which component of multimedia resources refers to moving pictures and typically combining images and sound for a compelling multimedia experience? Letter A. Text materials. Letter B. Photographs and other still images. Letter C. Audio files. And letter D. Video presentation. Activity 2. Arrange the steps in preparing a presentation. Write your answers on the diagram given below. Do not worry, these steps are quite familiar to you. Hurry and give it a try. 1. Select a topic. 2. Analyze your audience. 3. Prepare the body of the presentation. 4. Define the objectives of the presentation. 5. Prepare the introduction and conclusion. And 6. Practice delivering the presentation. Now that you have already gained familiarity with some terminologies which are related to multimedia resources and have tried to arrange simple steps in preparing a presentation, I will now ask you to read and listen to the story My Father Goes to Court. Reading this story will acquaint you with a good example of a narrative story. Note how this story illustrates narrative sequences. Here are the items for column A. Number 1. Judge. Number 2. Secretary. Number 3. Complainant. Number 4. Defendant. And number 5. Stenographer. Here are the items for column B. Letter A. Accuser. Letter B. Transcriber. Letter C. Mediator. Letter D. Clerk. And letter E. Offender. Here are the items for column C. First, an official in an organization who is responsible for writing notes about what happens at meetings and sending officials. Number 2, a person in court of law who is accused of having done something wrong. Number 3, a person who does shorthand or system of fast writing in an office or records speech using a special machine in a court. Number 4, a person who makes a formal complaint in a law court that they have been harmed by someone else. And number 5, a person who is in charge of a court of law.
The Radyo Z-eskwela program of the Division of Davao de Oro is being brought to you by Nueda Builders Construction and Supply Incorporated, Maverick Builders Incorporated, Mitch Construction and Supply, Archicons Architectural Construction and Supply, DB Construction and Supply, Hanaway Builders Corporation, Phoenix Corvada Tagum Gasoline Station, Master Construction and Supplies, Mackenzie Builders, GP&H Construction Incorporated, Metro Gear Construction Corporation, NEN Builders and Development Services Corporation, Max Mays Enterprises Incorporated, We Inc. Construction Company, Rangay Construction and Supply, East Sussex Enterprise, WM Construction, Councilor Boogie and Miss Marjorie Vertodazo, Icon Builders and Supply, and Apex Mining Company Incorporated.
My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulusan. When I was 4, I lived with my mother and brothers and sisters in a small town on the island of Luzon. Father's farm had been destroyed in 1918 with one of our sudden Philippine floods. So several years afterwards, we all lived in the town, though he preferred living in the country. We had as a next-door neighbor a very rich man whose sons and daughters seldom came out of the house. While we boys and girls played and sung in the sun, his children stayed inside and kept the windows closed. His house was so tall that his children could look in the window of our house and watched us played, or slept, or ate when there was any food in the house to eat. Now, this rich man's servants were always frying and cooking something good, and the aroma of the food was wafted down to us from the windows of the big house. We hung about and took all the wonderful smells of the food into our beings. Sometimes, in the morning, our whole family stood outside the windows of the rich man's house and listened to the musical sizzling of thick strips of bacon and ham. I can remember one afternoon when our neighbor's servant roasted 3 chickens. The chickens were young and tender, and the fat that dripped into the burning coals gave off an enchanting odor. We watched the servants turn the beautiful birds and inhaled the heavenly spirit that drifted out to us. Some days, the rich man appeared at a window and glowered down at us. He looked at us one by one, as though he were condemning us. We were all healthy because we went out in the sun and bathed in the cool water of the river that flowed from the mountains into the sea. Sometimes, we wrestled with one another in the house before we went to play. We were always in the best spirit, and our laughter was contagious. Other neighbors who passed by our house often stopped in our yard and joined us in laughter. As time went on, the rich man's children became thin and anemic, while we grew even more robust and full of life. Our faces were bright and rosy, but theirs were pale and sad. The rich man started to cough at night. Then he coughed day and night. His wife began coughing too. Then the children started to cough, one after the other. At night, their coughing sounded like the barking of a herd of seals. We hung outside their windows and listened to them. We wondered what happened. We knew that they were not sick from the lack of nourishment because they were still always frying something delicious to eat. One day, the rich man appeared at a window and stood there a long time. He looked at my sisters, who had grown fat in laughing, then at my brothers, whose arms and legs were like the malave, which is the sturdiest tree in the Philippines. He banged down the window and ran through his house, shutting all the windows. From that day on, the windows of our neighbor's house were always closed. The children did not come out anymore. We could still hear the servants cooking in the kitchen, and no matter how tight the windows were shut, the aroma of the food came to us in the wind and drifted gratuitously into our house. One morning, a policeman from the Presidencia came to our house with a sealed paper. The rich man had filed a complaint against us. Father took me with him when he went to the town's clerk and asked him what it was about. He told Father the man claimed that for years we had been stealing the spirit of his wealth and food. When the day came for us to appear in the court, Father brushed his old army uniform and borrowed a pair of shoes from one of my brothers. We were the first to arrive. Father sat on a chair in the center of the courtroom. Mother occupied a chair by the door. We children sat on a long bench by the wall. Father kept jumping up from his chair and stabbing the air with his arms, as though we were defending himself before an imaginary jury. The rich man arrived. He had grown old and feeble. His face was scarred with deep lines. With him was his young lawyer. Spectators came in and almost filled the chairs. The judge entered the room and sat on a high chair. We stood in a hurry and then sat down again. After the courtroom preliminaries, the judge looked at the father. "Do you have any lawyer?" he asked. "I don't need any lawyer, Judge," he said. "Proceed," said the judge. The rich man's lawyer jumped off and pointed his finger at Father. "Do you or you do not agree that you have been stealing the spirit of the complainant's wealth and food?" "I do not," Father said. "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant's servants cooked and fried fat legs of lamb or young chicken breast, you and your family hung outside his windows and inhaled the heavenly spirit of the food?" I agree, Father said. Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant and his children grew sickly and tubercular, you and your family became strong of limb and fair in complexion? I agree, Father said. How do you account for that? Father got up and paced around, scratching his head thoughtfully. Then he said, I would like to see the children of complainant, Judge. Bring in the children of the complainant. Then came in shyly. The spectators covered their mouths with their hands. They were so amazed to see the children so thin and pale. The children walked silently to a bench and sat down without looking up. They stared at the floor and moved their hands uneasily. Father could not say anything at first. He stood by his chair and looked at them. Finally, he said, I should like to cross-examine the complaint. Proceed, said the judge. Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your wealth and became a laughing family, while yours became morose and sad? Father said, Yes. Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your food by hanging outside your windows when your servants cooked it? Father asked. Yes. Then we are going to pay you right now, Father said. He walked over to where we children were sitting on the bench and took my straw hat off my lap and began filling it up with centavo pieces that he took out of his pockets. He went to Mother, who added a fistful of silver coins. My brothers threw in their small change. May I walk to the room across the hall and stay there for a few minutes, Judge? Father said. As you wish. The judge replied. Thank you, Father said. He strode into the other room with the hat in his hands. It was almost full of coins. The doors of both rooms were wide open. Are you ready? Father called. Proceed, the judge said. The sweet tinkle of the coins carried beautifully in the courtroom. The spectators turned their faces toward the sound with wonder. Father came back and stood before the complainant. Did you hear it? He asked. Hear what? The man asked. The spirit of the money when I shook his hat. He asked. Yes. Then you are paid, Father said. The rich man opened his mouth to speak and fell to the floor without a sound. The lawyer rushed to his aid. The judge pounded his gravel. Case dismissed, he said. Father strutted around the courtroom. The judge even came down from his high chair to shake hands with him. By the way, he whispered, I had an uncle who died laughing. You like to hear my family laugh, Judge? Father asked. Why not? Did you hear that, children? Father said. My sister started it. The rest of us followed them soon. The spectators were laughing with us, holding their bellies and bending over the chairs, and the laughter of the judge was the loudest of all.
The Radyo Z-eskwela program of the Division of Davao de Oro is being brought to you by Nueda Builders Construction and Supply Incorporated, Maverick Builders Incorporated, Mitch Construction and Supply, Archicons Architectural Construction and Supply, DB Construction and Supply, Hanaway Builders Corporation, Phoenix Corvada Tagum Gasoline Station, Master Construction and Supplies, Mackenzie Builders, GP&H Construction Incorporated, Metro Gear Construction Corporation, NEN Builders and Development Services Corporation, Max Mays Enterprises Incorporated, We Inc. Construction Company, Rangay Construction and Supply, East Sussex Enterprise, WM Construction, Councilor Boogie and Miss Marjorie Vertodazo, Icon Builders and Supply, and Apex Mining Company Incorporated.
The story, My Family Goes to Court, is an example of a narrative story. It pertains to a particular account of events, experiences, and details. It is also told in first person, as most of narrative stories are told from the point of view of the main character. As a reader, it is important for you to identify the sequence of the story. The sequence of events is the order of events as they occur in a story. The sequence of events in the story occurs in a precise order so that it makes sense to the person reading it. So how are we going to identify the sequence of events? You can organize the story into 3 sections and ask yourself the following questions. Number 1, what happens at the beginning of the story? Number 2, what happens in the middle of the story? And number 3, what happens at the end of the story? The beginning of the story usually introduces the main characters, setting, and problem faced by or purpose of the characters. The middle part of the story usually focuses on the characters as they try and solve the problems. The end of the story focuses on how the problem is resolved, or the end of the character's journey. According to several researchers, the use of multimedia resources in learning offers a lot of benefits, such as 1. It helps learners gain deeper understanding of the lesson. 2. It enhanced problem-solving skills. 3. It nurtures positivity in learning. 4. It serves as an avenue to gain various information. And 5. It allows world exploration. In using multimedia resources in narrating events, the presentation of your narratives should consist of at least 2 and perhaps all of the following types of communication. Number 1. Text materials. It refers to the original words of something written, printed, or spoken. It serves as a primary way to transmit information. Number 2. Photographs and other still images. These are illustrations which are perhaps the oldest form of media. It is as a strong visual element, which is often used as an entry point to more detailed information. Number 3. Audio files. It pertains to any digital information with speech or music stored on and played through a computer. Your narrative presentation can add sound from a musical background or a spoken explanation. Number 4. Video presentations. It is a form of multimedia presentation which contains graphic images or moving images, concise text, and sound. Video files are the most memory-intensive multimedia component which provide a compelling experience for the learners. Number 5. GIFs and other forms of animation. GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format. It is a short animated picture without a sound. Let us practice. How are you doing so far? Are you learning from your exercises? This time, go back to the story above and understand what the author is trying to say. Kindly take some time to do this. Here are important events of the story. Arrange them chronologically in a PowerPoint presentation. Be creative with your slides by combining texts with illustrations and animations. 1. The poor family moved to the city because of a sudden flood due to a Philippine typhoon. They had the rich family as their neighbors. 2. The rich family became very sick and blamed the poor family for it. They said that the poor family had been stealing the spirit of their wealth and food. A court scene happened. The lawyer of the rich family started asking questions, and the poor father defended their side. After all the questioning, the poor father found a way to end the scenario. After the court, the poor family and the judge had a good laugh. Number 4. As the maids of the rich family cooked young chicken breasts and tasty legs of lambs, the poor family hung outside their windows and inhaled the heavenly aroma of the food. Number 5. The rich family filed a complaint against the poor family. After many moments, they found themselves in the court. The story is set in a city in the Philippines. The young narrator begins by describing his large family. Though they are poor, they are full of mischief and laughter. The children are all strong and healthy, even though they have often go hungry. In contrast, the rich neighbor's children are thin and sickly, although they are given plenty of good food, which their impoverished neighbors enjoy smelling over the fence. 7. Consequently, the rich man brings a charge against the narrator's family for stealing the spirit of his family's food. The absurd case goes to court, and the narrator's father agrees to pay back the rich neighbor. He does this by collecting coins from all his friends present in his hat, then shaking the hat full of coins. Number 8. Being charged to pay for the spirit of food which his family supposedly got from its smell, he maintains that the jingling of the coins is a fair equivalent. The judge rules in the poor father's favor, and the rich man is forced to depart with no other payment than the spirit of the money the poor man collected. How do you find the activity? Please do great in making your presentations. Let us practice more. How was your previous learning exercise? Was it helpful? Which part or parts confuse you? Do not worry, this next activity might help you gain better understanding. Below is an example of sequence of events chart. Summarize the story, My Father Goes to Court, by accomplishing the chart below. This time, combine texts and drawings in summarizing the story. Follow the format being flashed on the screen. Let us remember, narrating and sequencing events is one of the many skills that contribute to your ability to comprehend what you have read. Also, narrating and sequencing are important components of problem solving across subject areas. Through this lesson, you will be able to use multimedia resources in expressing your stories or narratives creatively, which give you more freedom to voice out or recount your experiences. Answer the following. Give at least 3 important points to consider in using multimedia in sequencing or narrating events. Use the template being flashed on the screen. Let us assess. We are not done yet. Please do the activity below to check how far you have understood the lesson. Are you ready? Good luck! Draw the sequence of events in planting ornamental plants. Follow the format being flashed on the screen. Let us enhance. Now that you have practiced how to narrate or sequence events of the story, you should be ready to use appropriate multimedia resources in narrating events in personal or factual recounts. Let us try to see how you can apply your understanding of the lesson to more complex situations. Your task is Narrate the things that you have done during Christmas season ruined by the coronavirus pandemic through a video blog or vlog. Then, post it in your favorite social media account. Be reminded of these rubrics. I believe you are all done with your activity. Now, let us reflect. Write a reflection on what you have learned in this module by completing the blank space below. Follow the template being flashed on the screen. You may start with, "My journey through this lesson made me realize that." And that officially concludes our lesson presentation for today. Thank you for always being with me in our grade 7 English class. Once again, my name is Teacher Given HINAMPAS from Montevista National High School main campus, saying, God bless everyone and mabuhay.
Radyo Z-eskwela Executive Committee. The school's Division Superintendent, Eufemia T. Gamutin Seso 5. Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Romel R. Handayan. OIC Curriculum Implementation Division Chief, Karina S. Frasco. School Governance and Operations Division Chief, Dr. Ruben J. Riponte. Members: Cecilia Morales, Dr. Hilda A. Opeña, Dr. Arlene B. Lim, Dr. Eldecris B. Calzadora, Dr. Dexter A. Siquinia, Nohara O. Pinute, Noemi P. Canales, Dr. Grace D. Pontillas, Virgilito C. Pabrices, Juanito Lapiceros, Engineer Norberto S. Manlangi, Jomar M. Dumupoy, Bob Dalan S. Milabat, Medard T. Ampin, and Paz Eugenia Villusino. Technical Working Committee, Productions and Communications, Lorely E. Quijano, Given G. Hinampas, Judyland D. Yu, Donna D. D. Bolifer, Mary Rose N. Resma, Riven Manuel, Irene Lea C. Manguhon, and Bessie Aya N. Banias. Social Media and Packaging Team, Christian and Hara L. Martesio, William R. Ranara, Joan T. Iscoton, Roberto S. Acusar Jr., May B. Istanyol, Richard H. Arellano, Lee L. S. Blanco, Ralph A. Tabanyag, Angelo Gutierrez Jr., and Jade Karen Arais.